Hello and welcome to the Intentional Brief, your weekly video update on the one big thing in cybersecurity news for middle market companies, their management teams, and investors. I'm your host, Shay Colson, managing partner at Intentional Cybersecurity, and you can find us online at intentionalcyber.com. Today is Monday, October 13th, 2025, and it's Thanksgiving Day. In Canada, it is Columbus Day. Here in the US and in many places, including Washington State, it is Indigenous Peoples Day. But for me, it's just another Monday here with you. And this week, we're going to talk about trust, trusting people, trusting organizations, and trusting systems. There has been a string of interesting events over the past week that have caused me to have a bit of pause when it comes to how and how much we give trust to others. Again, be they organizations, be they partners or vendors, be they employees. So I thought I'd work through a few of those events that gave me this pause today in the hopes that it might help both of us dole out this precious resource a bit more thoughtfully. First, let's talk about trusting organizations. In this case, U.S. tech giant and new TikTok U.S. owner Oracle. If you haven't seen it, they suffered a second zero-day in their e-business suite, being actively exploited by the ransomware gang Clop. That part's not particularly unusual, as regular viewers of the show will no doubt be aware. But what is a bit unusual is that Oracle claimed to have patched this flaw in July, only acknowledging that it was still under active exploitation last week after collaborating with both Mandiant and Google's threat intelligence group. Not exactly a trust-inspiring approach. Meanwhile, those pesky threat actors at Closp carried out an active email extortion campaign in late September, perhaps why Oracle came back to the table here in early October, where Clop emailed leaders of those companies whose data had been stolen. Those emails in part read, quote, "We have recently breached your Oracle e-business suite application and copied a lot of documents. All the private files and other information are now held on our systems. But don't worry, you can always save your data for payment. We do not seek political power or care about any business. We always fulfill all promises and obligations," end quote. Essentially asking you to trust them. Meanwhile, the supposedly retired group of threat actors known as Scattered Lapsus Hunters, again, amalgamation of Scattered Spider, Lapsus, and Shiny Hunters, is offering what they're calling a, quote, crowdsourced extortion scheme, unquote, to put pressure on their victims, offering $10 in Bitcoin to anyone willing to harass senior executives of victim companies into paying their ransom. This is being run by their Telegram channel, and the campaign notes, quote, "You have permission to endlessly harass these executives till they comply with us. When we tell you to stop emailing a company or numbers of executive emails, you are to stop emailing them. This will be centralized and well operated," unquote. Again, asking both the executives of victim companies to trust them and this band of mercenary harassers to be trusted by them ends up placing a great deal of trust in this group that has already gone back on their word at least once by unretiring, and it didn't even take them that long. So these are not the only trust channels being exploited this week either. I saw a couple of other examples that just gave me pause. One, new details in an FBI affidavit of a retired Army lieutenant colonel who gave secrets about the early days of the U.S. operations in Ukraine to a Russian asset via an online dating platform. The transcripts are, as the kids are saying these days, pretty cringe, and for these leaks, he will spend the next 6 years in jail. Finally, we also learned how attackers got hold of reportedly 70,000 government-issued IDs and data on 5.5 million more active customers from Discord, and they did it by bribing a third-party customer service representative. According to reports, the threat actors simply emailed the outsourced employees located in Southeast Asia and offered them $500 for one-time proof that they had access to Discord systems, then offered a several $1,000 lump sum payment to those who took the initial bite in exchange for giving them access. This amount in the report was noted as, quote, astronomical in that part of the world, allowing a person to live comfortably for several years in their country. So again, as we say often, hackers don't break in, they log in, even if those credentials cost them a few $1,000s. And so when we talk about these ideas on both the show and in our organizations around least privilege, around zero trust, these are the reasons we're working so hard to operationalize them. Like everything in security, it's a balance, it's a trade-off. We don't want to create or work in or live in a culture of fear or distrust, but Rather, we need to create this concept of both a defense in depth and a diversity of defense approach that allows us to manage these risks in such a way as to limit the impact if our trust is broken. So clearly, trusting blindly is not the right plan, but the right amount of trust is something that each of us need to figure out for ourselves for each interaction. And that might take a bit of trial and error, but it is worth it, because if that trust is given and then exploited, we are the ones who suffer the consequences, and we're seeing that happen at lots of scales and lots of companies these days. And the more we can do to prevent it from happening to ourselves or limit the amount of impact it does if and when it happens, the better off we will be. From a fundraising perspective, suddenly looking at a bang-up Q4, with this week alone putting up more than $52 billion in newly committed capital, including Bain Capital raising $14 billion for its 14th flagship PE fund, Brookfield putting up $20 billion for its second global energy transition fund, Ares Management raising $5.3 billion for their third infrastructure secondaries fund, and more. What this means for the macro market is anyone's guess. Certainly I can't speculate. And we saw Fortune magazine reporting this week that U.S. GDP growth in H1 2025 was almost entirely driven by AI, without which it would have been up just 0.1%. They noted in the article that these companies account for 4% of the GDP, but 92% of the GDP growth. Bubble? Some people are saying. Link the article for more. A reminder that you can find back issues and written transcripts of these videos at intentionalcyber.com. Links to all of the articles below in the comments section, and you can now sign up for our monthly newsletter, The Intentional Dispatch. Just went out on the 11th of October, intentionalcyber.com/newsletter, and we will see you next week for another edition of The Intentional Brief.